In the heart of the night, this world will burn bright. We will set it alight. In the heart of the night, in the heart of the night, this world will burn bright. We will set it alight. In the heart of the night.
Hello everyone, I'm Anthropomantic Fiend, and I do horror-related things on the internet, and today I'm reviewing Nightbreed. This is a review that was requested by the amazing Learn the Conjurer. She is the host of all things spooky, creepy, weird, and fun. Her channel is highly, highly underrated. She recently passed 100-something subscribers, but that's not nearly enough given the quality of the content that she does. She does a lot of videos covering facts related to horror and the dark side of folklore, as well as kind of the paranormal and real life. But she also does a lot of crafting type videos, and she does painting and art, and all of it is really good. So if you are not subscribed to Learn, I will link her channel either in the cards or below or both. The copy of this movie that I watched in order to review this was sent to me by the amazing Sean Patrick Gershon from the Horror Corner. If you want to see me unboxing that, I will be linking the unboxing of the subscriber contest winnings package that he sent to me somewhere, and links to his channel will be in the cards and description of that video. The reason I decided to do this review now rather than putting it off to later is because it is Pride Month right now, and Clive Barker himself is an openly gay person, and there is a lot of queer subtext to this movie, so I thought it made sense to review this movie now. Also, I just really wanted to watch it again instead of putting it off till later. I just needed Nightbreed right now. Nightbreed is a film that came out in 1990. It was written and directed by Clive Barker, who directed the original Hellraiser, as well as Lord of Illusions and two shorts, Chalamet and The Forbidden, and he's also a very prolific writer, especially in horror. He wrote Cabal, upon which this is based, The Hellbound Heart, which is the basis for Hellraiser. He wrote the Books of Blood, as well as some things that lean more into fantasy, such as Aberrat, which is probably my personal favorite of Barker's stuff. And this film stars Craig Schiffer, who was in Widow's Point, Hellraiser Inferno, which is my least favorite Hellraiser movie as of now, and Battle Dogs, and Bobby, who is in BioShock, the TV show In Fear Of, and The Hanover House, David Cronenberg, who is in Jason X, Blood and Donuts, and To Die For, and is a very prolific director in his own right. He's directed movies like Videodrome and Scanners and Shivers. Catherine Chevalier, who was in Hellbound Hellraiser 2, The American Way, and Space Police, and the film also features a supporting role from the legendary Doug Bradley, who of course is best known for playing Pinhead in the Clive Barker created Hellraiser franchise. This film follows a man named Boone who has been having dreams of a place called Midian inhabited by strange creatures. He's been going to see a doctor named Decker to figure out what the hell is going on, and one day Decker informs him that a string of strange murders has been happening over the past few months, and Decker believes that Boone has been committing these murders and supposedly has things from their sessions on tape to prove it. This freaks Boone out, and deciding that he is himself a monster at this point, he goes to seek out Midian and seek refuge with the monsters, which is what he believes he is at this point. So the score for this film was done by the legendary Danny Elfman, who scored films like Beetlejuice, as well as almost every other movie Tim Burton has done, with just a few exceptions. I believe he has not done Ed Wood, he has not done Sweeney Todd, and he has not done Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, but he scored pretty much everything else Burton has ever done. And besides that, he's scored numerous other films. A few others include the recent thriller The Woman in the Window and the biopic Hitchcock. His score for this film, in typical Elfman fashion, is very darkly playful, but it's also kind of on the sweeping and epic end of the stuff that he's done. I would liken it to his score for Batman Returns in that respect. It's very spooky and macabre and dark, but also has this kind of edge of fun and playfulness to it, and it's also just very huge and grandiose and epic sounding. And personally, it is probably my favorite Danny Elfman score outside of his work for Tim Burton. And there's also just a little bit of music written for this film by Shirley Walker, who conducted the orchestra for the film and has worked with Elfman a lot before. She's also scored movies like Willard and partially wrote the score for Ghoulies. I could not have picked out the piece of music that she wrote for the film herself, but she was trying to match the tone of what Elfman did, and she did it very well, clearly. I believe her piece of music was written for the scene where the Berserkers are released, and there's also a really fun scene where Boone's girlfriend, Laurie, sings. I have no idea if it was actually the actress singing or not, but regardless, Laurie seems to have a fantastic voice, and it's a really solid song. As far as effects go, this is some of the coolest and most varied monster makeup I've seen in any movie ever. Really creative designs and beautifully executed. They're not hyper realistic in any way. They're very garish, very over the top, and they're all clearly makeup, but they're still all very consistent with the fantasy tone of the film and just beautifully crafted. And there are also numerous gore effects throughout the film, and all of those are really solid as well. Character-wise, I'm not sure Boone is the most nuanced character in the world. He certainly isn't the most dynamic in terms of his acting, but I really love him, and honestly, I think he's a little bit more nuanced than the performance itself lets on. He's kind of internalized a lot of things that will come out at different points in the film, so it's actually a really good performance. It's just not a really super dramatically emotionally varied performance, if that makes sense. I love David Cronenberg as Dr. Decker, who's very, very messed up. The way his character operates is very hateful towards the monsters of Midian, but there's also a sense that he envies them a little bit, which is something that gets brought up in the dialogue at some point. He never outright says that. You know he'd never admit that. But based on the stuff that the character is doing and a certain accessory that he wears at points in the film, there is a sense that he himself wants to be monstrous, but also wants to do things that he perceives as monstrous and blame it on the outsider and just be this very straight-laced normal doctor. Pretty messed up character, but beautifully acted by Mr. Cronenberg. And there are just, again, this huge variety of beautiful monsters or Nightbreed living in Midian. All of them have distinct designs, but also these really distinct, fun personalities to them. There's this mix of the obvious, over-the-top, grotesque fantasy element of everything that's going on with them, but just this element of them just being people. There's a scene where one of them's just lighting a cigarette casually and talking with people. One of them's got a little dog, which is adorable. He's like never seen without this little dog that he just carries around and pets. Really, the dynamic of the movie is that the humans are the monsters, which is something we've seen before, but not taken to this extreme, because again, the monsters are very grotesque and over the top and clearly monstrous, but there's this very kind of casual emotional realness to them that's really great. Whereas scenes with a lot of the human characters, particularly the crazy gun nuts who are sent after the Nightbreed at the end of the film, they are just over the top nasty, and it was fun to see that dynamic play into the tropes of monsters versus human angry mob, but also kind of reversing the dynamic that we see to some extent in a lot of horror. One monstrous character in particular, I forget his name, but he is the character that Boone meets in the hospital towards the beginning of the film, who has attempted to slice off his false face to join the monsters of Midian, but he is just comedy gold throughout this movie. My favorite scene is the one where there's this seemingly solemn ritual going on where Boone is being judged by Baphomet and seeing if he will be inducted into the Nightbreed, and this guy is just sitting in one corner and he's lighting a cigarette, and everyone just turns around to stare at him, and he just goes. There's just kind of this impish sense of humor to that character that I thought was wonderful. And as far as the naturals, or the human characters, go, if we're looking at this film through a queer lens, Boone's girlfriend Laurie is kind of the ultimate ally character, or at least operates that way for the majority of the film. And I think that is exemplified really well by one particular quote from her, and that is, "I loved him, but I don't think I ever really understood him." That is something that she pursues throughout the film. She is trying to just find him again. She goes to Midian to find him, but she is also trying to understand him in spite of his newfound monstrousness and just accepting that more or less as a part of him. There's a moment towards the end of the film where I think that dynamic changes a little bit in a way that I'm not sure if I like or not, but the fact that she just desperately loves him and will do anything to stay with him and is trying to understand the world of Midian and how that works entirely for his sake, I thought was great. I also love the minor character of Cheryl Ann, who Laurie meets in this one bar after she's decided to head up to Midian, and Laurie's in this really dark spot due to all of the things that have happened up to this point and Cheryl Ann really helps her through that. She's just a very upfront, honest person about everything that's going on in her life, and for the brief time that she's in this film, I really liked her. Visually speaking, this film is gorgeous. The whole production design, sets, costumes, lighting, everything creates this very surreal, dreamlike feel, even in the normal settings of the film. It creates this sense where reality and fantasy is blurred, and a place like Midian can exist right on the doorstep of this normal town. And there's also some really interesting stuff going on with cinematography. One shot that stood out in particular to me is one where Boone is in this particularly dark spot towards the beginning of the film, and he's just looking at a spot on his bed where presumably he and Laurie have made love numerous times, and there are just all of these numerous overlapping shots of him and Laurie kissing, and they're all kind of over the same spot but doing slightly different things, and it creates this really surreal and interesting visual that conveys really well all the memories Boone has in this particular spot, and him worried that all of that is something that is never going to be part of his life again. And it's also just a really cool visual. Story-wise, I love the way the law of Midian works in this movie. Midian is meant to keep the Nightbreed safe, but it prevents Nightbreed from helping naturals, again, the humans. That law is strained at points in time when people who Boone cares about, and by people Boone cares about, I mean Lori, is in danger, and Boone is just like, I don't care, I'm gonna help her anyway. This ends up putting Midian in danger, but Boone is adamant that they cannot survive by hiding and they have to fight. I liked how the Nightbreed acts as a possible allegory for queer community, and Boone is kind of finding his place there, and it is this more or less safe space where all of these perceived as monstrous characters are safe, but as soon as they are revealed to the rest of the world, they're more or less dead meat. But Boone wants them to be able to survive and live their lives without hiding, and I really like the way the movie approaches that, because while it acknowledges that that is probably the far better existence than just hiding, it also acknowledges that that's not always the safest option, and while yes, the Nightbreed should have fought for their lives, hiding may have also saved them in the end, but it also may not have. The movie doesn't have all the answers, and it kind of explores the pros and cons of hiding, but also existing publicly as who you are and fighting for your existence, and I liked the kind of fairly nuanced way the movie handles that. Overall, I might have a couple nitpicks for this movie. It is a very long movie. It clocks in at 2 hours exactly, and there are a few moments where maybe the movie drags a tiny little bit, but I really didn't feel that. I also am not totally satisfied by the ending, but again, the movie doesn't have all the answers. I don't think it was meant to be a satisfying ending, and again, I'm not totally sure how I feel about where things are left with Lori and Boone. But honestly, those nitpicky little things are things I really don't care about that much. This movie is more or less a perfect dark fantasy, monster-loving, queer-coded horror movie. And if you love Clive Barker's other work, if you're into things like Hellraiser, I think you will love this movie. If you like horror that leans more into fantasy, or fantasy that leans more into horror, I think you will enjoy this quite a bit. And if you just want some really, really beautiful, well-done monster effects, you are going to have a field day with this movie. This is the beautiful, beautiful copy that was sent to me by Sean Patrick Urshan from the Horror Corner. This is the Scream Factory release of the director's cut, and if you are going to watch this movie, definitely watch the director's cut, because the theatrical cuts pretty much destroyed Barker's vision for what this movie was supposed to be, because the studio didn't really understand that the monsters were supposed to be the heroes, and that's literally the whole point of Nightbreed. So if you're going to watch this, watch the director's cut. I would highly recommend picking up this Scream Factory release of the film, but if you are interested, it is also currently free to watch on Tubi, and I believe that is the director's cut. That is my review of Nightbreed. Thank you for watching my video, and hopefully I will see you in another one. Bye!